Medium, a mind-reading party game. A game that assesses your psychic potential. Not really, but it kind of works that way. There is an element here of communication, very limited communication, in which you will be trying to figure out the word that your partner is thinking while they are trying to figure out the word that you're thinking. Basically, you and your partner are trying to say the same word at the same time. Seems confusing, but it's very simple. Let's see how the game works. Let's take a look inside the box. The rulebook is very short, and then the main heart of the game is formed by these cards here that simply have words. As you can see, written in different positions on the card so that people around the table can see them easily. And then we have scoring tokens. Some say 1, some say 2, and some say 3 in numerals. The ones that say 1 have a 5 or a 6 printed on the back. The ones that say 2 have a 3 or a 4. The ones that say 3 have a 1 or a 2. Basically, within the restrictions that I will explain, if you and your partner are able to figure out the word, or to say the same word at the same time, at the first attempt, you will draw a level 1 token, therefore scoring 5 or 6 points. If you do it at the second attempt, then a level 2 second attempt token for 3 or 4 points. If you do it at the third attempt, then 1 or 2 victory points with one of these tokens. But you'll just be happy if you get it at the third attempt. It's very common, it's very normal to completely fail. That's just the way it works. Say, this is how it works. We sit around the table in a circle, and each player has a hand of cards. Interesting enough, in this game, each player plays in 2 teams at the same time. So if it's player A, player B, and player C, player A and B first will take a round together. Then B and if they score, they put a token in between them. That's scored by the A and B team. Then B and C will play together. If they score, they'll put the token there. Then C and A, etc., etc. At the end of the game, the pile with the most points in it determines the members of the team that wins the game. So it's played sequentially. Only 2 players play at a time, and other people are watching and cheering and also trying to figure out what the word might be. The idea is this. You will play a card. Basically, first it goes around, and the first player in a team will play a card from their hand. And suppose that I've selected that card from my hand. Now, the other player has a hand of cards, and they will choose one that they think will sort of like channel the communication. The 2 words, the one that was put there and the one that is gonna be put down next, will hint at a certain something, at a certain word. And suppose, for example, that they put there brain and sneeze. And then what happens once the 2 words are there, the players have a couple of seconds. We usually like to count down to 5, from 5, to make things more exciting for the poor people that are trying to solve the puzzle here. And then both players say a word at the same time. And say they both say freeze, brain, sneeze, brain, freeze. Oh, that was great. So they both said freeze, and then boom, they get a point. Suppose that one said freeze and the other said head or nose. The other said nose. So now we have freeze and nose. The second attempt will be based not on these words anymore, but on the 2 words that were given. So now the second attempt is based on nose and freeze. And suppose and now one of them says hippopotamus and the other one says runestones, because it's exactly the kind of stuff. And then you explain the convoluted processes that seem totally normal. So that was a fail again. The pair has a second attempt. There's a third attempt, and this time they have to use hippopotamus and runestones. And they both say magic. Boom. That is magic. It totally works. And so they score points. That's how it works. So these 2 players try to get a medium, the word in between. Once this is done, the cards are discarded, players refill their hand, and now the player, remember there was the second player, that is the one that got to add a second card. Now the player becomes the first player. Now the player puts down a card there, and the next player has a hand of cards. Huh? How about that one? That was good, huh? Because truly, the first time that you play the game, players will try to get words that are very similar. Jump and dance, or you know, summer and fruit, or summer and beach, and then there's just, it doesn't work that way. The two words are too similar, they can point to a million things. Actually, then the game becomes fun, and really to me the heart of the game is not really in the guessing, is in setting up the situation. Huh? How about that one? Get it? You really should, because it's just so obvious. I'm not gonna spoil it for you, but you should be yelling in your head right now. You continue like this for a number of rounds, and at that point, the team of 2 players with the most points wins the game. Medium, the mind reading party game. Now, there is mind reading, or at least what functionally kind of looks like it. Definitely there is a jocular party atmosphere as you play the game, but it is the word game that I'm not so sure. I don't know how much of a game there is in here, in the sense of hobby gaming that we recognize these days. It's fun, it feels again like a party structured activity. Why doesn't it feel much like a game? Because I don't know that you really have much control on the outcome. Figuring out the words and saying the right word at the same time is so difficult. It happens so rarely that when you do it, you do wonder. The first thing is, yeah, I did so well, that was amazing, I'm great. And then you start wondering, oh, I just got lucky that way. Because there's an element of luck in the cards that you get to see whether or not you'll be able to create a nice combination that will make both players thinking converge towards a certain thing. Because of that, actually, rather than the 2 players coming up with the same idea, it feels like a communication game in which, in fact, the second player is trying to communicate a word to the first. If you just put together 2 similar words, then there's just virtually no chance of figuring it out. And if you do, then you know you were just lucky, and so there's no satisfaction there, at least from the point of view of somebody who enjoys hobby gaming. But if you do happen to have the right, in your hand, the card, that you have this idea that really works with the card that they offer to you, and you're able to create that synergy, and then, wow. When it works, the payoff, the adrenaline boost is definitely considerable. The release of endorphins is intense. And that's, quote unquote, that's what makes it worth it. There's also, on one hand, the minus that only 2 players will play at the same time. With party games, usually you want to have a large number of players, and so very often players will play at the same time in many party games. Here you have to wait for your turn. When it comes around, you play twice in a row, but still if you have 5-6 players, and the game allegedly goes up to 8, well, then there is going to be a little bit of downtime. Again, the people that are not playing at least can try in their head to figure out what the word that the second player has in mind and is trying to communicate to the first one, and that's why actually we created this variant that if the second player really created a nice setup and the first player doesn't get it, and everybody else is like, oh, come on, everybody else seems to know it, we allow everybody to yell it at the same time, and if the person was supposed to is the one person who doesn't get it and everybody else got it, then they get to score a point. Does it improve the game? I don't know. I don't think it changes anything, but it gives more incentive to the people that are not the active players to pay attention and to have a good time and to laugh at the poor one person that didn't get it. All in good fun, all in a very friendly atmosphere. As described from the rules, also the game seemed to us a little too long. I mean, it's sort of like, it was fun while it lasted, but we played with 5-6 players. Once you go around 2 or 3 times around the table, you're okay. Unless we did something wrong that wouldn't lead us and you were close to the end of the game. I don't know, maybe we set up the deck wrong. But at a certain point, we're like, okay, this was fun. Why don't we just finish the round and move on to something else? We had fun playing medium. I don't know that we were playing much of a game. I don't know that there's much of a game in here. The strategy is just not there. From time to time you're lucky and you will have the witty idea and be able to create an interesting connection, which is what makes games of impeded communication fun. But I think there is, compared with other games, successful creative communication happens more rarely than in other games. In which, say, you're setting up, say, the crypto, for example, it's a lot more. Every time you're trying to communicate something, you're coming up with an idea that is potentially interesting and misleading and fun. Here, sometimes you come up with whatever you got there, especially if you make a mistake the first time, then there's no control on the two words you're getting next, and then it's just total randomness. So it's okay. We didn't hate it. We had even a good time. I don't know that it's much of a game, so I don't know that it will become a mainstay in our game nights, not even as an introductory, as a warm-up, general activity when we have many players who like to play a large game, a large game together. Say, When I Dream, to me, does a better job of entertaining everybody and still having the idea that you're playing with words and concepts. Medium is okay. Great satisfaction when you get it, but you're not going to get it very, very often. That's just a fact.